He's dressed in a coat of many colors, but as a Nigerian, he started out in Nollywood in the early 2000s when living in bondage was a mania, throwing up Nigerian filmmaking with remarkable film stars. Something close to BB Nigerian mania these days, you might say, because Nollywood had its bad boys and bad girls. It was, and it's still a blend of Nolly, Nigerian, Holly, American. And that is how Obi Emelonye got noticed by media and entertainment channels and multinational corporations. To those extent, he's a member of the British Film Institute, BFI, and a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. He also teaches at the University of Huddersfield, United Kingdom. Obi Emelonye is also CNN's Feature of Nollywood personality who braved coronavirus, take note, to film via Zoom link in 2020. You're welcome, Obi Emelonye.
Thank you very much, my brother.
When I say you're dressed in coat of many colors, we get along and see how you're dressing. You're only dressed in coat of many colors because
I mean, my coat of many colors.
Yeah, you've done so much in Nollywood, in what they usually call United Kingdom, Nollywood, United Kingdom. You've done so much in America. So let's kick it off. What are you doing now, given your reputation as the most awarded filmmaker in contemporary African cinema?
All right, thank you, my brother. First of all, that is open to conjecture. Some people might say that statement is wrong, but it's not. It doesn't mean very much to me. I am a filmmaker focused on myself. I don't see competition. I compete with myself. I do my best to tell the best stories possible, to push them the best I can, so that the world can see them. So I don't thrive on the number of awards that I have. I know I have won a few, and I'm grateful for those, but I don't remember that. Every project is new. Every project is a new beginning. And they say, he to whom much is given, much is expected. So there is a huge expectation that you carry on your shoulder because of who you are, because of what you've done in the past. That weighs somehow heavy. And some people can't even manage it. They say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. The pressure is too much. But, the pressure is what makes me wake up in the morning. I thrive on it. I thrive on trying to, be the better version of myself every day. So that statement is a burden to carry.
So how do you keep factoring in your international production experiences? Following your recent rounds with Blackmail on UK and Nigerian screens. I know you brought a Blackmail to this compound. You screened it, and it was an audience hit. So how do you keep factoring in your international experiences in such productions?
Everything we do in the film industry is a continuum. Unfortunately, there is no arrival. You cannot say, I've arrived, because there's no last bus stop in this industry. As soon as you get to the next bus stop beckons. So it's about continually improving yourself, working in a continuum. So for me, whatever you do in the past is in the past. You step on the shoulders of the people that have come before you. You step on the shoulders of the other projects that you've done in the past with the experience that you've gained. And then you face this completely new challenge of the new projects. Like I'm working on a film right now in pre-production for this film. And it's, it's like starting from the year 2000, because you have to do pre-production, you have to find the money, you have to agree the cast, you have to plan the production, you have to fit that into all the other things you're doing. So it helps that you've done it before. It helps that you know the ropes. It helps that you have the contacts in the industry and you have the skills and the skill set and the specialization that you require to make a project. But each project is a different kettle of fish. So
that's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying. How did all that build up to making a beautiful film like Blackmail? And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to talk about Blackmail a little bit. In that situation.
Yes, Blackmail. So it was 2020, at the beginning of lockdown, I've just come back from Nigeria and everybody was at home doing nothing. My wife was on the phone on Zoom to her work colleagues, and I said, we must do something. And that evening, I got an email from some fraudster online that said, you know, we've been watching you for the past 40 days. We have video of you doing all sorts of things in the house and blah, 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 blah. What would expose you unless you give us $2,000 in Bitcoin? I showed it to my wife. I said, what is this? And she said, oh, it's spammers. I should forget about it. But I couldn't forget about it because at the beginning of the email, they mentioned my password. And it was correct, even though I had changed the password like a month before. So it spoke to me. I said, what else do these people know? So that night, I started changing the passwords to my social media accounts, to my banking apps in Nigeria, to my banking apps in the UK.
All right.
I couldn't sleep. I said, but why am I worried? I don't have anything to hide. I know these people are fake, but why am I worried? So that night, I started looking for stories that dealt with cybersecurity or cyber insecurity, as the case may be, and I found only one, a TV series on Netflix called Black Mirror, and the particular episode was titled "Shut Up and Dance," and I watched it, and it had this, you know, post-apocalyptic view of the world. Everything was coming to an end, you know, really dark story. I said, if nobody has told a story of how cybersecurity affects you and I, anybody that has had an email address, then there's a gap here in the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think so to tell that story. That night, I started writing the script for Black
That's
Mirror.
right. That's cool. That's very cool. I mean, you've used the word apocalyptic, and I'm looking at the early 2000s when you were mixing with stars like Regina Askia, Sandra Jones, Saint-Obi, and Ritanzelu, Charles Okafor, Memiso Nketi Enshaw, and Liz Benson, among others. Can you, in a way, compare these apocalyptic times in the 21st or in 2023 or 2022 with those days? How did all that affect you? Manage your growing up in the industry, mixing with all those stars.
You know, Nollywood is a great place. It's a perfect industry where you can be who you want to be. You can come in irrespective of who you are, irrespective of the training you have, no matter how old you are, if you are short or tall or ugly or fine, whatever it is, you will find a space in Nollywood. So in the early 2000s, I packed up my things and said I spent at that time 7 years in London, and I wasn't welcome anymore. I didn't like the place anymore. I wanted to go back home with a burning, enthusiasm to say, you know what, I want to go and
unless you were an accountant or a lawyer.
No. I wasn't very far from an accountant. I qualified as a lawyer, practiced for a little while, but everything you are goes into everything you do. So in fact, the fact that you are a lawyer, the fact that I played professional football in Nigeria for Rangers and Julius Berger before I came to the UK, all of those things add to who I am. They add to my personality. They add to how I see the world.
Yeah.
They add to how I tell stories, because, you can imagine if I'm doing a drama that concerns law, my insight will be different from that of any other director. So it's we are complex beings, and everything that has happened to us goes into becoming whoever it is that we are.
You cannot
as I was talking about,
you cannot see why I say you wear coat of many colors.
Yes, I think when you get to my age, it's my birthday in the next few days. I will be 56 years old.
Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. It means that you would have gathered some moss along the way. And I think having lived the life that I've lived and worked as hard as I have, at 56, you are about consolidating. And it doesn't require any special skills to do that. All you have to do is continue going. And at 56, you would have, some momentum to be able to call yourself an expert in something. And that's what happens to me. So it's not a special, not special. I'm just a village man from Idapa South local government area of Imo State, who's doing something he enjoys.
Well, you gathered so much experience, when you were in Nollywood or when you came back to Nigeria and got involved with Nollywood. How did those experiences serve you as head of production, Ben TV, UK's first Afro-Caribbean channel, in terms of time, budget, quality, themes, actors, and distribution? Now, I'm really looking at the nitty-gritty of film production, if you would want to discuss them, because, this is about educating people who are listening to us now or watching us now.
Yes, once again, everything you are goes into everything you do. So when I came to join Nollywood in 2020, in 2000, Jesus, 20 years later, in 2000, I met an industry that was very informal. I met an industry that had, DVD and the VCD at its mainstay. I met an industry that was controlled by a cabal of marketers.
Marketers.
They
were very powerful.
Powerful people. And my experience wasn't a nice one, because all the dealings that I had with those marketers turned sour, all of them.
Oh.
I guess it was maybe there was MAGA written across my face. I was a young returnee from London. I had a little bit of money. I had my own studio. I was doing my own films. So in a way, they saw me as soft target. And every single distributor that I worked with cheated me. It was so frustrating that I had to go to Idumota and lock people's shops, drag them out of their shop and lock it with big box. Cause commotion in Idumota.
I remember. You remind me of when Charlie Boy went with a gun to get his money from a producer. How did he want to pay him in those days?
I didn't go with a gun. I went with my muscles. I was a strong man, a young man at the time. So I would muscle them out of their offices, locked the gates with big padlocks, and the whole Idumota gathered to beg me. So such was my frustration that after 1 year of doing that, I've learned a lot in terms of filmmaking, because you learn more from doing than from pontificating and from lectures. So in working in the industry and making about 5 or 6 films in that 1 year that I spent, I got a lot of experience. I discovered what worked. I discovered how to relate with an audience. How to do an audience. So it was a huge learning curve for me, very sharp learning curve. And when I was frustrated economically by the marketers, I packed up my bags and came back to London. And I told them that I would be back, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I said, I will be back. And my comeback film became The Mirror Boy in 2011, which opened up a new vista for myself as a filmmaker and for the whole of Nollywood, which is the new Nollywood evolved with better films, better stories, more attention to details, the cinema culture. And that has blossomed into what we have today.
And that served you well at Ben TV.
Relating that to Ben Television. So when I came back to the UK, Alistair Shoyode, who is the founder of Ben Television, contacted me and said, look, we need a certain quality in our production. Alistair is not a broadcaster. He's an entrepreneur who saw an opportunity. So he knew the commercial side of things. He didn't know the production very long, because I got involved in other projects that moved me away from it. But while it lasted, we made some very interesting programs. And what I did in Nollywood, that experience of being in the field, working, grafting, was a huge help in terms of bringing the same work ethic into the television station for Ben TV. And, Ben TV is no longer on air, but while it lasted, it was a very strong channel that really connected Nigerians with their home. And I was a small part of that.
I'm really thinking about, you're teaching now in a university, you have experience in Nollywood, You have experience in the UK film industry. When you want to encapsulate all this and model your own maybe filmmaking culture between the two continents, what is your feeling about, mutual interchange, mutual benefit in terms of lessons, in terms of education, in terms of skills acquisition, skills transfer? What's your comments?
I occupy a very unique position in African cinema. I am very grounded in Africanness. There are very few Africans who are more African than me, I would say. But I also have the ability to see things from a slightly different perspective, which is a more global, more universal perspective.
Yeah,
and that's a very unique position. And I while I celebrate that, while I use that as a means of giving my project a certain taste, a certain reception with the audience. It's something I'm also researching. I'm completing my PhD in December from Goldsmith University of London, and my PhD research is on Nollywood and how can integrate the international angle of Nollywood storytelling and Nollywood filmmaking.
Beautiful one.
And to create what I call a hybrid of Hollywood stroke Nollywood, which is happening with the advent of the big players, Netflix and the likes, into Hollywood. There seems to be emerging a hybridization or a kind of a hyphenated Nollywood that is not the old Nollywood, but something fresh.
Some people will say neo Nollywood with the old one for the old one. That was a neo Nollywood. So I don't know what you call yours at the end of the day.
Nomenclature doesn't really matter. What matters is the substance, and the substance is that Nigerian storytelling is improving. The quality of film production, the attention to the details, the factors of production are being paid attention to, and the quality of what we're doing is rising, as reflected in the viewing figures in the cinemas and on some of those platforms. So it's something that would happen anyway. Whatever people choose to call it, whether they call it New Nollywood or call it Neo Nollywood or they call it, the advent of the authentic Nigerian cinema, whatever you call it, the fact is that Nollywood is progressing. We are transcending those borders that were put in front of us because of the medium of our distribution, which was DVD. Now with virtual distribution through streaming and all of that stuff, we are everywhere. People can sit in China and watch films. I get responses for emails from Brazil and Ecuador and El Salvador for people that have watched my films. I've never been to those places. So that's the reach of Nollywood. It's about this very international filmmaking practice that squeezes out every ounce of value from small budgets that would not shoot a shot in other territories. And that's Nollywood. It doesn't have to be Nigerian. This is what we sold to Ghana. This is what we sold to Cote d'Ivoire and all of those places that have taken the Nollywood module and they are adopting it and adapting it to suit their purpose. It's great what has happened with Nollywood. And when you consider that Nollywood there's no place called Nollywood. It's a bunch of independent filmmaking practices who are just hustling. But globally, they have this very sharp front that people think, there's somewhere in Lagos you go to and you see Nollywood. No, unfortunately, everybody is in their studio doing their thing, but the world sees the effort and the impact on global storytelling. Look at FESPACO, what happened in FESPACO. FESPACO is a Francophone film festival that happens in Burkina Faso. Last month, Nigerian film was the opening film, and the Nigerian film by my good friend CJ Obasi also won the Critics Award.
Yeah.
So in the past, they never used to accept Nigerian films. They called us low quality, straight to video rubbish. Now we are opening the festival. Now we are winning awards there. So it is that Nigerian spirit, that never say die attitude, that can do attitude that makes us rise from the height of
that can do Igbo attitude.
It's not Igbo attitude, it's Nigerian attitude.
Okay. That's a good one. I'm still talking to Obi Emelonye, CNN's Future of Nollywood personality, member of with membership of the UK Film Directors Guilds and the British Film Institute. It's nice having you on this program. So let's go on. Can you compare and situate Nollywood's low-budget filmmaking from screenplay to screen in the US and UK, where you have worked with perhaps better skilled crews and cast? What I'm looking at now, you've already mentioned it, you've already talked about it in a little way, in a little bit. But I need you to go into the integrity of budgeting, crewing and casting a little bit so that we can understand.
Every film is the same. Every film director is trying to tell a story, to pass a message. Whether the budget is 1 billion or it is 10,000 naira, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are trying to tell a visual story with every tool that you have in your arsenal, with every tool that you have in your resources. And it's no different. So to give you an example, when I was approached by University of Huddersfield to come and start their filmmaking course, that's a UK university. That's, that has been in existence for 159 years. They're asking this Nigerian filmmaker to come and start their filmmaking course. Mm-hmm. At the time, I wasn't looking to be a teacher. I'm not a teacher. I'm not cut out to be very regimented in that teaching sense. I'm a free spirit and I like my independence. But when the offer was made to me, I felt that offer wasn't a personal offer, that it transcended me.
Sure, you're right.
That it was a case of Nollywood being recognized as a veritable film industry in the world.
Yeah.
And one of its major practitioners is being invited to not just come and be a lecturer in film studies and analyzing film. No, a lecturer in filmmaking.
Sure.
So I designed the courses. I designed the cinematography and camera work. I designed editing and storytelling. I designed lights, camera, action. I'm teaching, I am assessing. I am a bunch of young British students. I have about 24 in my second year, which I started with last year, and about 50 in my first year cohort. So a bunch of young British creatives who are depending on me, this Nigerian filmmaker, to learn the craft of filmmaking. That tells you that filmmaking is a universal language. It doesn't matter if you're telling Indian stories or a Chinese story just won the Oscar yesterday. So that tells you the world is open for business with whoever tells the story. It doesn't matter where the story comes from. It doesn't matter what the language of the story is. If you tell a good story about a human experience, every human being, wherever they are, would relate to it. And that's what, validated my decision to take this job, because it was not about me. It was about my industry, and I needed to accept it on their behalf. And for 2 years, I have been doing it. I have been gaining more experience, getting some kind of contextualization, the theoretical contextualization of my practice, so that my next film is going to be a better film because I see things slightly differently, not just from filmmaking perspective, but from the point of view of theory and practice. So, it's a great thing. So whatever story you're telling, whatever budgets you're working within, it's about telling, it's about communicating that story. So for argument's sake, Blackmail was shot with a budget that would not shoot a short in the UK, but we shot a film, a feature-length film that went on to show in 100 cinemas across the UK, which is absolutely the record for a British-made black film. So it's shown in 100 cinemas, made decent money. It has been, reviewed by every single mainstream press, from Variety to Hollywood Reporter to the British newspapers to the BBC to Sky, everywhere. So it is a simple, small budget film that has taken on this, life of its own just because people connected with the story. So I'm not one to talk too much about budgets because they did very well. And it's not because they didn't have the money. It's simply because the story did not work with people. So budgets, no matter at all. It is the story you tell and how well you tell it from the heart that will determine the success of a film.
Okay, wrapping up your experience from Ben TV and your self-taught craftsmanship, becoming member of UK Film Directors Guild, what really is your cinematic style and statement? I know you said, you're a Nollywood-styled movie maker who went to the UK, but wrapping up, what's your statement? How would you say, some people wake up and say, okay, there is an author, director with such a statement. What's your statement? What's your short statement?
I think the auteur theory is a French concept which attempts to see the filmmaker, the film director, as some kind of author. Kind of equating the process of filmmaking with the process of writing a book. I'm not particularly, a big fan of that theory because I think filmmaking is a very collaborative process. I think editors in films deserve more credit than they're getting in Hollywood and in Hollywood because that's when the story is made. That's when the film is made. The editor is the corrector of everything wrong with the film. If the script is wrong, the editor has an opportunity to correct it. If the directing is wrong, the editor has, if the cinematography is wrong, if the acting is wrong, the editor makes choices that affect the quality of the film. So, Spielberg, when he was nominated for his latest film, mentioned production assistants as being the core of his filmmaking work. And these are people who are paid very little, who run around carrying lights and dragging things around and making sure that the production happens. So there are lots of people within the process who are very important. The director takes a lot of the credits, and I would take that because that's the way the convention of the industry works. However, I value the people that I work with. I value their input. I celebrate them. I at every opportunity, I mention that this is not about me. This is about the team, from the writers down to the production managers, down to the visual effects people, down to the guy sitting in a dark room in America who writes the music of the film, and down to the guy sitting in Nigeria doing the sound design, recording all the Foley and all of those things. These are the guys that make the film. So, do I have a statement? Do I have a style? I would say, short of telling a story from the heart, I don't. And I've reflected that in the range of stories that I've told. I've told child-centered adventure films like The Mirror Boy. Made it work. It worked commercially, it worked critically, won a lot of awards, opened 1,000 doors for me. And if people thought I was going to be typecast as this young storyteller or fantasy storyteller, no. The next film was Last Flight of Abuja, a disaster thriller. And I made it work commercially. I made it work critically because, people, you won more awards than The Mirror Boy. And people felt, okay, he's a blockbuster storyteller. He's going to give us the next blockbuster where something happens on a ship. No, I went ahead and made Onyozi, a comedy with Oke Bakassi that looked at, some level of spirituality and the luck of the Igbo guy. You said about the Igbo guy's can-do attitude. I explored a bit of that.
Yeah, I remember. I watched that movie. It was very funny.
Absolutely. It was the first. It was one of the first films to go on Netflix in 2014. It was the first film to show an Africa Magic Igbo. It was the first Igbo film to win an AMVCA. It was the first Igbo film to win an AMA Award. So whatever the story that I take, whatever the concept, whatever the genre, I put my soul into it. So I refuse to be pigeonholed in this statement that says, oh, I want to tell a story a particular way. No, I want to be a Steven Spielberg who could pick a biopic like I picked Badamasi about Babangida, and I made it work. It was hugely successful. It still is on Amazon Prime where it's showing. I could take cybersecurity as I did with blackmail and make it work. So at the bottom of everything we do, at the heart of everything we do, perspective, or you tell it, so long as you tell the story from the heart, you will have the audience. Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
You tell stories.
About the story.
That's a good one. You tell stories from the heart. You're a man of the heart. Yeah, I'm still talking to.
My name is Obi, so I'm the heart man.
Yeah, okay. I'm just talking to Obi Emelonye, CNN's Future of Nollywood personality with membership of the UK Film Directors and the British Film Institute, and he tells his stories from the heart. A director that tells his stories from the heart. Now, there's this perspective about women, feminism, that is growing now in Nigeria, that is picking up in Nigeria, where if you place male vis-a-vis females, and you begin to tell stories, it could be a growing culture over there in the UK, but it's also growing here in Nigeria where women are beginning to assert themselves. Could you also tell a story from the heart, or have you told a story from the heart already?
With the way I celebrate my wife, with the way I celebrate the women in my life, my mom and my wife and my sister, you can tell that I value the inputs, the invaluable inputs of women folk. And I try to reflect that in the story that I tell. So the next film that I'm working on involves the female perspective, just like The Mirror Boy was also the perspective of the mother who goes through this turmoil with a missing son in the middle of a market in Africa when they came back from the UK. I try to provide a gendered view of the concepts I'm dealing with, irrespective of what that concept is. Last Flight Abuja had a female pilot. I could have made it 2 pilots. At the time, there weren't many female pilots in 2012 when I made it. But I made it with a female pilot, just to make the statement that women are capable of doing anything they set their minds on. I have a daughter who's going to be a medical doctor, and she decided she was going to do it. I said, go ahead. You decide, you do it. Nobody can stop you. Your gender cannot stop you. So I've always had a very gendered perspective on most of the stories that I tell, and the world is only beginning to catch up. Unfortunately, as with everything in life, there is an extreme of it where people begin to, to compare apples with oranges, compare males with females. Each of those sexes has its own uniqueness, its own power, and there's no need to compare. You cannot compare with the fish in swimming. It would outrun you. It would outswim you. But bring the fish to dry land, and you show it who is boss. So it is about valuing people, seeing people as a team, as a member of the team. When I mentioned that I played football, what I get from football is that you need a team to win. You cannot buy the best players like Chelsea have and start winning games immediately. No, they have to gel as a team before they can start winning. So women are part of the team that everybody needs to succeed. The film industry needs to succeed. So I tell stories that are gendered. I tell stories with female central characters. I give my actors and actresses the best opportunity to be the best they can be. I celebrate what they do. I celebrate the women in my life. And you don't have to pick up arms to now start a war between males and females. No, everybody plays their role, and the world is a better place.
But I'm valuing the fact that you're talking about family, your wife, your mother, maybe your daughters too. I'm looking at a situation where this sense of, you could call it, war of the sexes is beginning to destroy, family values. I mean, in the case of Nigeria, it's becoming rife, where you have separations, you have divorces, you have all kinds of things happening, and the family is not holding together again. I mean, what's your comment?
I celebrated 20 years of marriage with my wife in February this year. And one of the things that I posted on social media was that every marriage needs an ambassador. Every marriage needs more than love. Love is not enough. That I love him, I love her, is not enough. Because there are times when we fall short of the patience, of the tolerance, of the forgiveness that is necessary to make a stranger into a spouse. In those times, we need somebody who's fair, who we trust, who we believe in, who we respect, to come in and play the referee. Not to say who wins and who loses, but to just give you a different perspective, to say, sit down. Have you thought about this from your wife's perspective? Have you thought about this from your husband's perspective? This is your position. We are not Oyibo people, though. Irrespective of where we live, we are still Nigerians. And let's remember that we come from somewhere. We are a people. That you say that your mom and your dad are still living together 90 years after they got married, and your dad celebrates your mom every day. Have you asked your mom what she had to do for that to happen? Because there's a give and take. You cannot come home and pretend that you are the boss of the house, and yet when there's a knock on the door that is loud, you send the man to go and die. No, you play your role. That role is to nurture the family, to nourish the family in whatever way it is. The man's role is different from your role, especially when it comes to children. So if you start to compare whose trousers are longest or whose skirts are shortest, you miss the point. And that is what's happening with most of our relationships, that people refuse their traditional positions in life, in a family's life, and yet they want the traditional benefits of marriage. If you don't want to get married, it's fine. Do your thing, be single. But if you want to get married, you have to compromise. You cannot say, take me as I am or leave it. No, I cannot take you as I am. If you want me to take you as you are, take me as I am. So there's always a case of, you know what, I have to compromise a little bit on my values to accommodate somebody else. I want my bed to be warm, but the person who is on the other side of the bed wants the bed to be cold too. So I have to get an agreement where the bed is lukewarm. I like my room to be very tidy, as if it's a showroom. However, the other person is a bit careless with things. So accommodate a little bit of careless. Talk about it, get them to improve, but don't kick them out because they are untidy. Because they're not you. Remember, this guy is a stranger. The only thing that has brought two of you together is the agreement to love each other. And that agreement doesn't eradicate all the differences that you came with. You met as adults. You have disagreements with your brothers and sisters. What is more, a stranger who's come into your life when you were about 35? It's difficult.
Well,
so it is the constant work that is required.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Most of the people in our industry get carried away by the glamour.
That's a good one. I also hope our filmmakers will begin to, indoctrinate that into our stories, or insert that into our stories, engage that into our stories to build family and something family. You've said so much. My next question will have, talk about what you've covered so much. You talk about global outreach for Nollywood and profitability. You talk about the expansion of global investment. You've even spoken about marketing in the diaspora and African markets, just so that we will know that I keep going back to the industriousness of the Igbo guy. You can't beat that, Mr. Obi. You cannot beat that.
Nigeria.
You cannot beat that, my brother. You cannot beat that. So the next question. You have a very strong sense of corporate social responsibility in your programs like Obi Emelonye, Foundation, Street 50 Legacy, and Crazy Lovely Cool. Can you, explain that to our, our audience and, to show how you've given back to the society?
It's you get to a certain stage in your life and it stops being about you. It's not about winning the next award. It's not about getting $1 billion. You've had a good innings, as they say in cricket. You've had a good life. And you look back and say, there are people who are starting off like I did a few years ago, who would need the help that I needed at that time, that are not getting it. So there are lots of creative people. And the thing about Nollywood is that it has very low entry barriers. Whoever you are, whatever your educational standards, you'll find a place, so long as you have a passion for the industry. So I as I turned 50 a few years ago, many years now, I felt that it was the right time to decentralize myself as the focus of what I do, and to try and use my influence and my contacts to lift other people. So I started the Obi Emelonye Foundation to primarily help people who are interested in the film industry to find a foothold. And one of the first things we did was a co-production with Trace TV, Crazy Lovely Cool, which we shot at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. And the idea was to get a bunch of, decent, well-known people, Enyi Namwigwe, Adesuwa Itomi, and the likes, and combine them with a bunch of unknowns from the university where I studied in Nigeria, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and give those young people the pedestal to go on and become somebody. And that's what we did. In a few years after that, I also made another TV series called Crazy Lovely Cool, called Heart and Soul, which is streaming on Netflix too, where there was not one well-known person. Everybody was a fresher. I organized a training workshop in Lagos, but at the back of my mind, it was an audition. I didn't want to say it was an audition. If I said it was an audition, a lot of people would come who are just interested in the glamour. But I wanted people who wanted to learn. And I said it was a workshop. And about 100 people showed up. I did the workshop, but at the end of it, I cast the film. At the end of the workshop, I told people, okay, you're playing this, we're starting shoot in 2 days' time. Yeah, you're playing this role, you're playing that role. About 80% of the people that came to that workshop were part of the film. It's on Netflix now. Even
Excellent. Excellent.
But over the years also, my work, my corporate social responsibility work has transcended film. So in 2010, I donated a kidney to my younger brother to save his life. And almost every year we have somebody in Nollywood who has kidney problems, who needs contribution to go to hospital or to go to India for an operation and stuff like that. And there are very little things that we could do as a people to look after ourselves and to safeguard kidney problems that have become acute. So part of the work that I do now every year is to, first of all, promote that, you can donate a kidney. It wouldn't kill you. It actually made me healthier and made me more successful if you look at it critically. Because at the time I gave the kidney to my brother in 2010, I just finished shooting The Mirror Boy. And the guy that woke up from the theater bench is a different guy from the guy that was put to sleep. And since then, it's been, transcendental success. So it would not kill you. And if you have somebody who needs it and you are tested and you are able to donate, please do. But you don't have to donate. All you have to do is look after yourself, at least. Look after your kidney. And in our industry, we have a lot of problems with kidney, and it's because of the lifestyle. Make the changes to the lifestyle. Do some tests occasionally to find out how well you are doing in those areas. And part of what I do now is to send that word out there. And if it saves one life, if it saves 2 people, then it would have been successful. So beyond film, beyond everything else that we do, it's to create that awareness that we all need to support each other. We all need to look after our health, because health is number one.
I can only say you're everywhere. That's why I said you're wearing coat of many colors. I've been talking to Obi Emelonye, CNN's Future of Nollywood personality, member of the UK Film Directors and a member of the British Film Institute, the BFI. It's so nice to have had you on Film Talk. Sorry, I barged into your time. I know UK is a busy place, but here in Nigeria, we're a bit, a little bit relaxed. So I kept coming to you in the morning. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for coming on Film Talk. Thank you so much. You can find us on, Instagram and Facebook. Thank you, Obi. Thank you so much.